lesson number 4, multiplying rational numbers. So what we have here is a breakdown, and basically what we're talking about here is we're talking about the positives and negatives. So when we have a positive times a positive, like 3 times 4, we get a positive as a result. When we have two negatives multiplied together, we still end up with a positive. Now, positive times a negative and a negative times a positive, we end up with a negative. So you should remember these rules. Now, so here's our breakdown. If the signs are the same, the answer is positive. If the signs are different, the answer is negative. So you can often write it this way. Positive times a positive equals a positive. A negative times a negative equals a positive. A positive times a negative equals a negative. A negative times a positive equals a negative. So those are the only rules you have to remember when you're multiplying rational numbers. Okay, go to the second page there. So now let's do some examples. So the first thing we're going to look at is we have a positive times a positive, so our answer is going to be positive. So when you multiply, you just multiply straight across. Numerator is 1 times 1, denominator is 2 times 3, 1 over 6, and then always reduce it if you can. Next one here, we have a negative times a positive. So our answer is going to be negative when we look at the final result. So 2 times 1 is 2, 3 times 4 is 12, and reduce your fractions. Both 2 comes out of each one, so 2 divided by 2 is 1, 12 divided by 2 is 6. Still negative, so negative 1, 6. Okay, we have here a negative times a negative, so our end result is going to be positive. Multiply straight across. 3 times 4 is 12, 2 times 9 is 18. You can reduce this, you can divide by 3, end up with 4 over 6. Oh, you can reduce it one more time, divide by 2, end up with 2/3. Now, you may have learned a faster way of doing it, and that is called reduction on the fly. So look back here at the original one. If you look at here, 2 and 4, they're diagonal, they're across from each other, like diagonally across from each other. What number goes into both? 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, 4 divided by 2 is 2. Then we can look at the 3 and the 9. What goes into both of those? 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, 9 divided by 3 is 3. Then we can just multiply straight across. 1 times 2 is 2, 1 times 3 is 3, and we already get the fraction in reduced form. Either way is a correct way of doing it, but you might want to save yourself some time by doing this on the fly. Okay, here we go. Positive times a negative. So our answer is going to be negative. Go across. 11 times 21, 231. 7 times 44, 308. Oh my goodness. That's a big number to reduce. Well, in this case, you can divide both by 77 and get negative 3/4. So in this example, it's way nicer to look at reduction on the fly. So look at 7 and 21. What goes into both of those? 7. 7 divided by 7 is 1. 21 divided by 7 is 3. Then we look at here at the 11 and 44. What's common to both of those? Well, 11. So 11 divided by 11 is 1. 44 divided by 11 is 4. Now we can multiply straight across. 1 times 3, 3. 1 times 4 is 4. And remember, your answer is negative because we had a positive times a negative. So this way, reducing it works really well to get the final result. Okay, now what happens is when we have mixed fractions. Now mixed fractions, change them to improper. Easiest way. 3 times 2 plus 2 is 8 over 3. 4 times 1 plus 3 is 7. Don't forget it's negative there, so negative 7 over 4. When they're side by side like that with the brackets, it just means multiplication. So positive times a negative is going to end up with a negative. Multiply straight across, 56 over 12. Now, when you're reducing fractions, sometimes you're not always going to get the reduced fractions on the first try, but you can do it in multiple steps. So this ends with a 6 and then ends with a 2. You can divide both by 2. So we end up with negative 28 over 6. Then you can divide each of these by 2 again, and you end up with negative 14 over 3. Now that, an improper fraction is fine, but if you want to, you can switch it to a mixed fraction. 3 goes into 14 4 times, and you're left with 2/3. So negative 4 and 2/3. Okay, so now you can work on practice number 4.